Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second quarterly meeting for the Falcon Cove Beach community, and we are focusing again on short-term rentals. And we have with me today, I'm Gail Hendrickson, Community Development Director. We also have Rob Ledgerwood, who's one of our co-compliance specialists, and Rob will be leading the presentation this morning.
Good morning, everybody. Gail mentioned my name is Rob and a co-compliance specialist here in Clatsop County. See if I can share my screen here. Gail, how do I share my screen?
Okay. Yeah, I'll put up your presentation, Rob.
Okay. Get out of it here. You show the other. There it goes. All right, guys, everybody. Today the discussion is going to center around the Falcon Cove short-term rentals and any associated code compliance activity that has occurred in the third quarter of 2020, July 1st through September 30th. I'm going to go to the next slide, Gail. In that time frame, Code Compliance has received or opened 6 short-term rental files. 5 of the 6 files have been resolved. 4 of the 6 files have involved noise. On the first one, on July 8th, short-term rentals owners reported a possible over-occupancy and also some unauthorized pets to their own agent. The agent responded at the owner's request. The situation had been resolved before county staff was even made aware of it. But we did receive a complaint from a neighbor the following day about the noise. At that point, the situation had been resolved. On August 7th, staff received a noise complaint. The agent was made aware of the issue, and the management company provided a response, and that response was they had banned the tenants from renting from their management company worldwide. Then on August 21st, staff received the complaint, but the complaint was submitted 7 days after the alleged incident, and we were unable to verify any noise violation had occurred. The agent was also not made aware of any issue that had happened. There was also a report of open alcohol, and any alcohol is not something that code compliance enforces. September 6th, we received the noise complaint. Staff was unable to reach the point of contact due to the point of contact's information being outdated. And so a notice of warning was issued for outdated point of contact information, and which brought that situation into compliance. The response was also satisfactory to the complaining party, and it seems like that issue is resolved. 2 of the 6 files that we opened also involved parking related issues. On August 4th, we received a complaint regarding short-term rental tenants parking on public streets. When we reviewed the situation, it was determined that the short-term rental was providing the required number of off-street parking places, and that there was no encumbrance on the shared driveway, because the short-term rental and the neighbor have an agreement in place to share the driveway. And parking on a public street was non-blocking, and there was determined to be no code violation that had occurred. On August 21st, staff received the complaint. This is the same one as before, where we received the complaint 7 days after the occurrence. The complaint stated that there were cars parked on site, but they were non-blocking. The short-term rental agent was not aware of any issue. And then upon review, we realized that code does not provide a maximum number of cars that are allowed on our property, and we were unable to verify any parking violation since the parking was occurring on the short-term rental property. One of the 6 files involved renting multiple units on a single parcel. This is the one that's still open, and staff is reviewing that situation currently. Gail, if you want to slide to the next slide, thank you. One of the big projects that we've been working on here is developing a short-term rental complaint hotline. Our go live date is set for November 24th. The phone number that can be called is 503-325-1001. There's also an online complaint form. That form can be found on the county code compliance website. And so that's available 24/7. It's bilingual. We're looking forward to having that roll out. In previous short-term rental meetings, we indicated there would be a Board of Commissioners work session for short-term rentals. This has been scheduled, I'm told, for February 24th, 2021. We have 10 people registered to speak today. Due to some time constraints, we are going to limit those people to about 3 to 4 minutes of time. I have a list of folks here I can read off. And Gail, if you want to unmute them as we go. The first person that we have registered today is Alan Solares. Alan, are you with us today?
Yes, I'm here.
Great, Alan, go ahead.
Okay. So after several years of having the STR ordinance in place, it's a reasonable time to revisit it, and the increase in the number of complaints that the county's received certainly provides justification for that. As a STR owner, I've found the ordinance to be very reasonable and very, very well implemented. But I understand that some of the rules have not been implemented or enforced by certain homes. And as a STR owner, I want to make sure that the bad apples don't continue to taint the rest of us who are trying to act responsibly and show concern for our neighbors. The STR ordinance provided health and safety requirements and inspections that took into account building, fire, health considerations, and that was followed by an inspection on site to verify it. The ordinance is also, I think, I presume, has led to an increase in the collection of room tax revenues as STRs come out into the open and identify themselves and get permits. And I think it's also improved conditions for neighbors because of regulation of parking, noise, garbage, and the number of people. But I recognize that that last point is where most of the complaints have been. The current requirements are necessary. I also think that they're sufficient, and the county has a huge tool bag of responses for violations. So the requirements aren't the problem. It's the implementation and enforcement of the STR requirements. The enforcement tools the county has range from warnings to fines to restrictions to revocation of the license. I think those are all appropriate. There is some concern by owners that some of the while some of the complaints are legitimate, that some of them may be spurious, or in cases where neighbors have become at odds with each other, and the direct communication that would preferably occur between the neighbor and the owner is not occurring or has gone sour, and that the owners are relying on the county to enforce its requirements. And I agree that legitimate complaints should be promptly and effectively responded to, from communication through to enforcement. But the county's been unable to respond. You have other precedents. You have a lack of manpower. At a previous work session, the idea of hiring a contractor to receive complaints, to investigate and validate them, which I think is the most important step, and then to either enforce them or to recommend to the county the enforcement action, is a step that I fully support that. You know, we also want to keep in mind that short-term rental owners have rights and needs and concerns. Many of them can't afford to own these homes without having some rental revenue, but the claim that people are going around buying up homes for commercial investment as rentals is unverified, and frankly is not likely to be true, because these homes are nowhere near being profitable. I can tell you, after 20 years of very successful rental, that at best it pays about half the cost of owning the home. People are not making big profits on these things, or any profits, likely. And then the other thing is that there's kind of a theme of that this area and our homes are really just for the benefit of certain owners. In Cove Beach, we have about 100 homes. Around 20 of them are occupied full-time. The rest of them are vacation homes. And I'm not sure what the number of actual short-term rentals is, but you could provide that information. But let's just keep in mind that the Oregon coast, like other areas in the country, is for the enjoyment of everyone, not just for the few that can afford a second home. And that as we all like to go to beautiful areas throughout the country, I think it's important that we open our homes and our areas to people, but also expect them to behave properly. So it's up to STR owners, and working in conjunction with the county to come up with a reasonable system of, we have reasonable requirements, but as I say, the real problem is the implementation and enforcement. I think the contracting idea is the most practical one. And I think that as owners, we can expect to share in some of those costs, but even more so the people who are in violation of the ordinance. So let's all be good neighbors and get along and work this out. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate that. The next person on the list is Beth Radich. Beth, are you with us today? Beth, are you with us today? We'll go to the next person. The next person registered today is Charles Dice. Charles, are you with us today?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Charles, I can hear you. Go ahead.
All right, great. So I think we're all looking forward to the county implementing this new system to 24/7 registration and hopefully response to our complaints here in Cove Beach. We're also really looking forward and hope that the county will be tracking the number of complaints that are received, not just the ones that are verified, because as you've pointed out already, just due to the nature of some of these complaints with transient occupancy, where people may only be renting the rental unit for a day or 2 days, by the time someone gets down here to do this verification process, they may well be gone. So I'd like to make sure that that the county is going to preserve that data that comes in about complaints on short-term rental properties. And it would also be really good to have some metrics, again, that are publicly available as to how long it took for a response to these various complaints. I think that would go a long ways to help. Another concern in our community, and as I think the prior speaker pointed out, this is a residential community. It was designed to be a residential community, and many of us who bought or built homes here built homes in a residential community, not in a commercial community. There are plenty of places along the coast where, you know, hotels and short-term accommodations are permitted and allowed. in the zoning ordinances. That's not true in Cove Beach. So one of the things that we have a concern about in this current time is this issue of COVID. We're seeing short-term rentals turn over in a matter of a few hours. So again, it's a small community. The neighbors see what's going on. We oftentimes see people check out at 11. The cleaners show up about 12. They're there from 12 to 3, and then 4 o'clock, the new renters show up. I think this should be something of concern to the Clatsop County Public Health Department. It's my understanding from friends who are in the accommodation industry that hotels and other short-term accommodations are regulated by the Public Health Department during these COVID times regarding cleaning procedures and steps to make sure that people stay safe. And I don't think that is the case for short-term rentals. In fact, there are agencies out there, the Vacation Rental Management Association, that have had recommendations about a buffer between short-term rental guests and about the cleaning procedures that should be followed. Airbnb has a policy in place that there should be a buffer of between 24 and 72 hours between guests to allow a thorough cleaning of the property. So I think this is something that is of concern to our community, especially since our community, the residents here are in that most vulnerable bracket. Many of us are over the age of 60, and we see these people from God knows where up and down the roads, walking their dogs or out on the beach. So there certainly is a potential there for this COVID virus to be passed around. So I'd ask the county to look to that from a public health standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Next person on the list is, I think it's David Cleland. David?
Okay, I don't see him in attendance unless he's under a different name.
Could be last name of Cornelius, possibly.
All right, I have Joanne Cornelius. Are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just finally got on. Too old to seem to run this sort of thing. One of my feelings, well, I testified before. The problem I see is in the county managing STRs in a rural area like this is just almost impossible. I was just reading recently about the STRs in the Portland area that they're trying to increase low-cost housing or apartments on in the infilling process, and they find that about 80% of the people that have requested infilling end up putting them in STRs, and that just doesn't solve anything. And the other thing, the 80% they discovered checking with like Airbnb that they weren't even listed with the county as STRs. They were just running their own little businesses like happens here. I've tried to get information from Tillamook County on the STRs who has STRs here in, because I live in Tillamook County, part of the Cove, and I've yet to get any information on who is listed, or whether, how many are listed, or whether or not they have septic systems that are adequate for the possible STRs. I can't think of anything else to say. It's just frustrating. I'm done.
All right, thank you. The next person on the list is Guido Paparoni. Guido, are you with us?
Yes, good morning, Mr. Rob. How are you doing?
Doing well, thank
Can you
you.
hear me? Okay, I've got three sequential things, two questions and one comment. The first one is at the Artscape STR meeting, we learned that 61% of the tax revenue for the 2019-2020 fiscal year was collected in Artscape and Falcon Cove Beach, resulting in approximately $475,000 of revenue. Of that money, $57,000 went into improving Artscape roads and drainage, but none came to Cove Beach. My understanding is that $85,000 were collected from Falcon Cove Beach in this instance. So my first question is, who decides how the money is used, and how could Falcon Cove Beach benefit from this? In other words, what is the procedure to request that funds get reinvested into our infrastructure, in particular our community? Should I keep going? Meaning, can I get the answers at the end, or should I just keep going?
Yeah, I don't know that's Rob or I would have an answer for that question. You probably would need to work with both Public Works and the Budget and Finance Department and the Board of Commissioners, but that's something that Rob and I cannot address or help, or allocate that money for you.
Yeah, fair enough, Gail. Thank you. So on the software solution for reporting STR violations, my second question is, what penalties are incurred if there are individuals that repeatedly provide false reportings?
So at this time, we don't have a penalty or anything in the code or the ordinance that would penalize someone for making false reports. As Rob mentioned, we will be having a work session with the Board of Commissioners on February 24th to discuss short-term rentals, and that would be one of the items that could possibly be brought forward to the board for their input and direction.
Thank you very much, Gail. Then my third comment, and this is for the record. Given that Falcon Cove Beach Water District has been very outspoken against STRs, including the enactment of a water moratorium, I wanted to make the county aware that after the installation of water meters this summer, several leaks have been detected, with some of the STR owners being billed upwards of $10,000 over the summer due to these leaks. I hope that that these particular statements that the Falcon Cove Beach Water District has made, in particular on excessive use of water consumption by STRs, are actually given proper scrutiny by the county, including the fact that we had leaks in the system to begin with. Thank you for the opportunity to provide public comment.
All right, thank you, Guido. The next person on our list is Jeff Stewart. Jeff Stewart.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Jeff, go ahead.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity again. Most of my comments, I think, are going to go towards just general process here. I feel like notification could be better, and I'm hoping to maybe work with staff to figure out how to do that so that all people are notified. I only found out by a neighbor here within the last week, and then Rob, you contacted me yesterday, and I just feel a little bit in the dark about the whole process, particularly as perhaps the review of existing STR requirements goes on, and whether any additional changes are to be proposed. So my primary chief concerns in this are, of course, transparency and knowing that it's an open, fair process for all owners down in the Cove to be involved. And I know you guys are doing the best you can do. And I know I've been on public commissions before, trying to get people's attention or trying to get them notified with sometimes inaccurate information can be a challenge, especially for a small staff. But that, of course, is a primary concern of mine. I have been fortunate to be down at the Cove probably half time. I live in Portland, but also have a place that I built down there. Knowing full well when we built that this is a mixed neighborhood, there was always rentals there. I was under no illusion that there wouldn't be rentals. I can honestly say, walking around the Cove over the past 2-3 months, of course, there was heavier use by both day trippers to this beach. And of course, with the summer season, you get more renters. Things have, of course, quieted down substantially since Labor Day, I would say. Although it's fair to probably say that with COVID, seems that there's been, with nice weather, more rentals going on the last month or so. But honestly, I've walked around the Cove, haven't seen or witnessed large issues such as garbage that's out of hand, or even noise for that matter. We have multiple rentals around us, and I honestly have not, heard anything like loud music. Ironically, I have heard loud music from an owner, but it was not a renter in that situation, and they're not a full-time resident down there. But it wasn't a bother, actually. Parking, I think, is one other issue that seems to ruffle feathers down in the Cove. I do think that it's probably outside the purview of short-term rentals here, but it does seem if transportation became involved, both between Tillamook and Clatsop counties, to look at maybe designating some parking zones that are identified, it might stop some of the owners of both vacation rentals or those of us that don't rent, and the full-time residents there, the 10 or 20, whatever that number is. If there's just more certainty of where we can guide people to park. We know people are going to come down and visit the beach. This is a public beach. So if there are areas, particularly, I have a piece of property that's got a frontage on Columbia. I'll try to keep weeds and briars down. Seems like an adequate place for people that come down for the day to maybe get there. And I think all of us, and I mean everybody in the Cove who loves the Cove, are there for a reason, continues to keep an eye out. I think all of us do our part to pick up an area if it gets a trash can gets blown over, or if we go down to the beach and we see bottles and cans or that. I know we're not going to get the Park Service down there to put any garbage cans and stuff like that, but again, I think we all do this as we walk the beach. I don't think it's out of hand. I mean, I hate to see anything, but I try to do my part to pick up things when I see it, and it's not every time that I'm down there, certainly. So again, I'll stop there. I just hope to be able to get a better idea of the process, where we're going with this, what documents and when they come out, and then just getting adequate notice of when these meetings might be beforehand. I don't know if it's something that can be published, or if you can direct us of where we can find that out online. So I appreciate all the effort going into this, and do look forward to continuing with the process and making changes as needed, if needed. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. The next one that was registered is Jonathan Felix Lund. Jonathan Felix Lund, are you with us? All right, the next person on the list is Nancy Chase. Nancy Chase, are you with us today?
You hear me?
Nancy, I can hear you, yes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to address a few items. First of all, I'd like to second Mr. Paparoni's suggestion that some of these short-term rental taxes come back to Cove Beach improvements for roads. And if there's a way staff could let us know the right venue for getting that process going, or at least considered, that would be appreciated. I bought my house in 1992, and it's been a short-term rental the whole time. So I'd like to kind of second that this was kind of a pre-existing situation of mixed uses, part-time residential and full-time residential, prior to when many of the full-time residents built their homes or purchased their homes. So this was a known situation. And unlike Portland, I think we have the opportunity as a small little community to really solve these problems. So I know Jonathan wasn't on the line, but he's done a lot of work to try to get the short-term rental owners together to kind of solve these problems, be proactive, but also to determine actually the correct number in relationship to the number of homes down there. And I would like to say we can send that list to staff to verify it, but I think it's below the 30 that's been mentioned a few times. Regarding false reports, or I guess grudge matches, or someone just doesn't like the rental next to them, I'm hoping there's some way to eliminate that. Or maybe it's education, like I had assumed on a public street that you could park, or at least on a road. Most of the people who park in front of my house are service providers or contractors who don't want to block a driveway, and they're usually partially on my lawn and partially in the street, and there's usually always room for people to get by. It's not a heavy traffic area. There are a lot of people just coming down, though, to use the access points down to the beach and trying to find parking. You know, it'd be nice if that could be provided for them somehow in a safe manner. Regarding how many, or the ones in, I had got all the lists from Tillamook County very easily, Joanne. I can send that to you of short-term rentals. I've got a baby here with me if you hear some other comments coming in. She's very happy right now. So, and VRBO, which I use, Vacation Rentals by Owner, they directly pick up the taxes and send them to the county. So there's no way I could be under the radar since those taxes are sent from VRBO to the county. And I think the other agent, I think the county's also exploring other ways to do that. Sorry. I think that was, I guess, the end of, oh, I know, just education. You know, can you park along the street as a car? Can you walk around with a beer? You know, I've certainly done it myself on a hot day. So the open carry thing. I know that a few doors north of me, renters had the fire department show up because they had a fire in their little burn pit, and I'm not even sure if that was illegal or not. I don't think it was. So some of these complaints, I think if we had more information on what's allowed and what isn't, could be maybe reduced for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nancy. The next person on our list is Rick Smith. Rick Smith, are you with us today?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Hi. Thank you. Yeah, my wife and I are residents, full-time residents down here. And when you went through the complaint list at the beginning of the meeting, you didn't list one of the complaints that we filed, and I'm just wondering how you work with the sheriff's department, because we noticed a trespasser from one of the renters, and they were occupying or trespassing on a cliff that actually the county had posted signs, and so we tried to warn them that they were trespassing, and they did not listen to us. So we checked with our commissioner, Leanne Thompson, and she told us the best thing to do, because this was a weekend, was to call the sheriff's department. And I'm just wondering if the sheriff forwards those reports to you. I realize the online complaint form won't go live until later this month. So is the county working with the sheriff and aligning the complaints that go to the sheriff's department?
I was never forwarded any complaint from the sheriff about that. I did receive a couple of complaints about trespass. I don't remember when those were.
But you're not counting those under the short-term rental?
If it wasn't regarding a short-term rental property, they weren't included.
The county's short-term rental ordinance does not address trespassing. That's going to be a civil matter between property owners and the trespasser. So there, that is not something that our code compliance staff would be involved with.
Okay, well, I'd like to recommend that it be something that be considered in the future, because you know, if you're limited to just the property that the short-term rental is applied to, then the challenge is that there could be many things that the renters are doing that are impacting the rest of the community, even though it may not be the individual property itself. So I would encourage you to enhance the complaint form so that we can make those types of complaints known as well to the county. Thank you.
Okay, and I just want to point out that trespass is going to be a criminal issue. We are not deputies or law enforcement, so we will not be pursuing criminal complaints, whether it's trespassing, alcohol, drugs, any other type of criminal activity that is going on a property. So that is not the role of code compliance. That is the role of law enforcement.
All right, thank you, Rick, for those comments. The next person on the list is Scott Harn. Scott Harn, are you with us today?
And Mr. Harn will need to, okay.
Good morning, you can hear me?
Yeah, Scott, we can hear you. Thank you.
Great, thanks for the opportunity to speak. So we're new to the community as of June. We spoke very, very briefly on the July meeting, but just introduce ourselves, and I've got some remarks now. So like I said, we're new as of June, and we absolutely love the Cove. This is a vacation house for us. We use it ourselves. We're a family of 5 with college-age kids. And so when we're here, we can tend to be a large group. We'll often bring maybe a mother-in-law with us and have 2 or 3 cars. And we also use the house and give it to friends and family regularly. And eventually we plan to move here year-round in a few years when we're empty nesters. And the reason I explain all that is so that you can understand, and the other folks listening in can understand the level of effort we put into being good neighbors here. So we've developed friendly relationships with our immediate neighbors as well as other folks in the community as we've been able, just on walks and whatnot. I even had a neighbor loan me a saw today for a small project I'm working on. So that said, we also use our home as a short-term rental out of financial necessity. We manage it ourselves, and everything we do in that regard is focused on being a good neighbor and observing the community guidelines around things like quiet hours, slow driving, parking, bungeeing the trash, turning off the lights at night, as well as the county guidelines for occupancy, et cetera. So we're aware of no complaints against our property to date since we've owned it, nor it was used as a rental prior to our ownership, and not aware of any complaints there. We vet our renters in advance for group size and for their profile. And in our listing and in our direct communications with guests, we're very, very specific to communicate all of the community rules. So it's a lot of effort that we put into trying to do this in a way that's respectful to the community. I'll also say that I've interacted briefly with folks in the county offices, including Gail and Alicia, who are on the call, and I've only had great experiences there. Our transient tax, I think, is providing significant revenue, and I'm proud of that. And then what I'll say is that I think, like it's been said already, this is a small community, approximately 95 homes. And my sense is that we should be able to address the short-term rental issues within the community directly. When I do some basic math, I do 95 homes times 365 nights a year. That adds up to 34,675 nights. I think we would need to get to 3,500 complaints per year just to get to a 1% complaint rate. And I don't think we're anywhere close to that. I think so when this just tells me that what's happening is that a lot of what's driving meetings like this is the loudness of the complaints and not really the frequency or the rate of complaints, just to some degree, right? I see issues in the community that I think are really troubling, like camping and people with permanent campsites on properties, and aesthetic issues like, debris in yards and whatnot, but we're not having meetings about those things. So I guess what I'm a little bit concerned about, and what I hope happens in the background, is that it's only the loud voices that are being heard. As the results of a meeting like this get communicated to the county commissioners, I'm worried that future changes to the STR ordinances are being contemplated based on those. But I need the people on this call and our commissioners to also be listening to the rental-friendly cohort just as closely as they're listening to the complaining cohort. Thank you.
All right, Scott, you were the last one on the list. There was two people that we called earlier that either weren't on the line or weren't didn't get off mute or something. So we'll just go back to those people now. Beth Radich, are you on the line? I think I got an email from you a second ago. It popped over.
Yeah, she is here and she's not muted, but we're not picking her up.
Okay. All right. The next person is Jonathan Felix Lund. Were you able to join us?
Yeah, he's here. Let me take him off mute. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I think I got it this time. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. First up, I just want to say thank you so much for putting these together. We learned a lot from the last meeting in terms of kind of the scope and nature of many of the complaints revolving around short-term rentals. And, since that time, we feel like we've been able to have a lot of success communicating with the majority of our neighbors. And most of these issues are, pretty minor things that can have, I think definitely an annoying kind of impact on folks that are here long-term, or even folks that aren't here long term that are not renting to people, but it maybe impacts their ability to enjoy their place. One of those would be, lights being on in the evening. And so we've done a number of things to just mitigate those. And I think that's one thing I'd like to just, communicate to the county, communicate to everyone else listening, is I think that many of these issues are pretty easy to solve if we take a creative approach and we work together. And the other side of that is, good behavior is incredibly hard to legislate. So I don't envy the job, Rob and Gail, of you guys having to kind of try to find the best situation that works for everyone, because many of these things are personal preferences, which are important, but it's hard to align those with what the actual guidelines are going to be that can be enforced and watched. I was hoping that today we would maybe be able to get a little bit more information, if you have it, on what the new software system is going to look like, how the flow of communications will go, and if there's more discussion about what will be on the agenda for the work session in terms of that implementation. My main concern around that new system is just that we continue to have a verification process for complaints. And I know that presents some unique challenges because it's not always easy to verify those complaints, but I think it's essential that we don't rely on every complaint to be made, in good faith, because there are many interested parties, and, to start to punish people that have permits that have gone through a number of, you know, all the processes and getting certified and having their septic system actually certified by the county. We should make sure that the complaints that might lead to some kind of punishment or fine are verified. And I'm sure you are doing that, but I am curious to hear a little bit more of an update if you have it, or when we might be able to hear kind of a detailed update for how that's going to change the process. I guess I'll keep going. You know, I think that the last thing I would say too is, you know, there's a great legacy in Oregon of having public access to the beaches, and I think that, you know, we should consider this whole discussion in the light of that as well. Like, we shouldn't expect, and we don't want this community to be a closed off community that only a few people can enjoy. You know, it really needs to be something where we're going to have a diverse group of owners and people are going to want to use their properties in different ways. And I think that that should be a given, and the focus should really be on how do we work out the challenges that you're going to have anytime you have neighbors. You know, if we had all the homes, 95 homes filled with full-time residents in this area, that would also be a really different situation. You know, the road systems, the different complaints that have kind of been brought up, well, those would be multiplied in a huge way. And so we're going to have issues in the area that need to be addressed as things change and grow and move forward. But I think the best way to address those is to have people working together and speaking with one another and trying to find compromise. And I'm concerned a little bit that there are some folks that just don't want short-term rentals at all, and so they may or may not be willing to engage in the specific issues that they might be complaining about. And you know, I can understand that if you live here, you don't want to constantly be dealing with those issues with your neighbors, and you want the county to do more. And I think Alan put a lot of the issues very well, that there's room for improvement, but we should just make sure that we're looking at all stakeholders, and you know, we're not just taking the complaints, whether they're, you know, personal complaints for how they'd like to enjoy their home, or legitimate complaints based on the ordinance that's in place. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thank you. Those are all the people that are on our list. Kind of concludes our meeting today. We're going to leave the public comment period open for 7 days. I believe that is November 20th at 5 p.m. is when we'll close. So if you want to submit any additional written comment, you can send that to me via email or hard mail. I don't know, Gail, do you have anything else before we close today?
We did have the one written comment.
Oh, that's right.
From Leslie Ann Butler. She said, "We are concerned about the water board. They notified us that our October water usage was nearly 8,000 gallons. We do not have any leaks, had it checked out by a plumber, and no one was there that month. We asked the plumber to check the meter to see if it was swirling fast, showing water usage, but these meters don't work that way apparently, so you can't see water being used. We have no way of knowing if the meters are working correctly, and we certainly are not happy about the quote apparent huge water usage. We would like to know if others are having issues with their water bills and unsubstantiated water usage. Thank you, Leslie Ann." So, and other than that, I did not have anything else for the meeting, Rob.
All right, well, that's all I have. We'll look for those written comments, and I will send out a notice, a meeting notice after the first of the year for review of the fourth quarter topics. We'll schedule that to be for the first quarter of 2021.
Okay, thank you everyone, and have a good day.